So welcome back to our first parallel session of the day. So first up, we have Liva, who is currently the content design lead at DBS Singapore. So prior to DBS, Liva was the lead UX writer at Honestbee, Asia's fastest growing grocery retailer startup. In her talk titled "Talk to Me Like Humans Do," Liva will discover some fascinating insights around how the language we use as designers directly affects product usability. So without any further ado, I would like to invite Liva to our UXVN stage.
Hi.
Hi, Liva.
Hi, everyone. Cool. All right. I'm super happy to be here. I hope you can hear and see me. My talk is kind of short, but it has a little surprise at the end, which I think is the best part. So then, I guess, let's start. Cool. I hope you can see my slides now. So I'm from DBS, and DBS is a bank. It's Singapore's largest bank. And as in any financial institution, we have our fair share of financial jargon and language that just feels formal and outdated and kind of heavy. So when I joined DBS about 3 years ago, I knew that it's one of the things that I wanted to help to change. And I wasn't alone. There were a lot of other people in DBS who also thought that we should sound more human and less like an old-fashioned bank. But here's the thing, words are really hard. When you have two pieces of content, how do you decide whether this one is more human and more empathetic, or is this one? So to try to answer that question, we created our very own litmus test, a single question that we would ask whenever we had to decide, does this really sound human or not? So that question is, would you say that to someone's face? When you write something, would you then walk up to your mom, to your friend, to your colleague, and say the line that you had just written to someone's face? If it's not something that sounds natural said out loud, it's also probably something that you should not write and use in your digital products. I have a short video. Hopefully it will show you kind of what I mean.
Did you pay me back for lunch? Dear Sir or Madam, I refer to the transfer dated 27th of October. I'm pleased to confirm that the transaction was completed. Can you come for the planning meeting tomorrow? Alert. Please note that I can only be registered for one meeting at a time. Any alternate meeting will therefore be automatically deregistered. Can you share the town hall presentation draft with me? You are not registered for this service. What? You are not registered for this service. I want to join the offsite. Can you sign me up?
Yes, but please know that by doing so, you authorize me to accept, rely, or act upon any instruction given or purported to be given by you from the email address listed above in respect to this application.
Hey, I'll add you to the Sunday running group on WhatsApp. Is this a new number? The above is not my current mobile number. Please update it via your phone's contact list app. Thereafter, you may proceed with adding me to the above-mentioned group. Can you pass me the salt?
Sorry, we're unable to proceed with your request. For assistance, please call 1-800-111-1111.
Baby, can you move?
I hope that wasn't too loud. I actually have no idea. Okay, so the examples that you heard from the video are actually all real examples that we found in our digital products with very tiny tweaks made to just fit the script. So obviously, as you probably made out from the video, this is not what we want to sound like, because this is not something you would say to a friend or a colleague or a family member. But the thing is, why does it matter? Maybe it does not matter. Banks have been around for a long time. People are used to the way that banks speak. Maybe they're okay with a super formal language, and hiring writers and just doing all of this is a massive waste of time. I think that there are 3 very good reasons why we should care whether our digital products sound human or not, and I'll take you through them. Humans relate to other humans. We don't relate to robots. We don't relate to corporations. We relate to other humans. And as a brand, we want to be relatable. I will tell you a little story. Maybe you know this one, then just bear with me. So once upon a time, in a library in Finland, they decided that they wanted to automate some of the things that they had to do every day, such as showing customers where a particular book is kept, or maybe putting books back on shelves. So they hired an agency to build them a little robot. They did it, and the robot worked wonderfully. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. However, there was a bit of a problem. People would not let it do its job. Kids would sit on it, and people would get in its way, and they just didn't know how to interact with it. So then they did quite a genius thing. They put a pair of big googly eyes on the little robot, and they added other touches such as chirping and beeping whenever the robot did something right, just to show that it understands and it's listening. And it worked wonderfully. People just loved the little robot now. And the only thing that had changed were the big googly eyes. Basically, a box on wheels was just too abstract for people to understand how to interact with. And googly eyes just made the little robot a little more human and saved the day. The second reason is kind of pragmatic, but I think it has to be mentioned, is that complicated language is simply not accessible. How we write directly affects the usability for products. I've used this online tool here to rate the readability of this particular piece of content. The tool is free. It's not foolproof, but it's just a great idea to, a great little tool to give you an idea how exactly readable your text is. So if you listen to this, do you confirm you're not a tax resident of the jurisdictions where you're residing, citizen of, or having an address, and you are not a tax resident of any jurisdiction other than the one you have declared? I work at DBS and I still don't understand what it means. In fact, it took us a lot of meetings just to go through it and for anyone to be able to explain this. So yes, language is complicated, and that is not human directly affects the usability of our products. Now we come to the third reason. When language is not human, it doesn't connect with us. It is too abstract. I love this quote. The abstract is another world. It requires effort and imagination to transport ourselves there. The writer should bring it to us. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Here we have the same message written in 2 different ways. Let's first look at the example on the left that has the longer content. Fines up to $50 and imprisonment up to 30 days should be placed against the violator if a mandatory sprinkling ban has to be imposed by the county water authority. Now let's look at the shorter example on the right, which has the same message but is written in a different way. Sprinkling your lawn could put you in jail for 30 days or cost you a $50 fine if the water authority has to ban it. So the problem with the example on the left is that neither one of us wants to think of ourselves as a violator. I am not a violator, I'm a good person. I call my mom once a week. I go to my job really around 9, sometimes around 10, but I go. And I feed my cats and I pay taxes. I'm a good person. So I'm not a violator, so this is not about me. I don't have to remember or pay any attention to it. So when language is too abstract, it just doesn't connect with us. And as writers, it is our job to take the abstract and make it real, to make the reader understand that this is about you and you should pay attention to this. So something as abstract as domestic accommodation improvement program in reality is government money for people willing to spend more of their own on house repairs. Or the deterioration of the traffic situation actually is your partner caught in a traffic jam taking children to school. Or an improvement in the workers' facilities is a new canteen with sausage and eggs at $1.50. We have to take the abstract and make it real because that's the only way it's going to connect to our users. So are we really that irrational? We took there was a little robot and all that was done was they stuck a pair of googly eyes on it and suddenly we are all like interacting with it differently. Like, how is it possible? Aren't we these logical beings? Don't we see the world for what it really is? An ergonomic seat designed for one person, optical lenses invented by Benjamin Franklin, alcoholic mixture by Dr. Lane Marshall, and small carnivorous mammal. Okay, maybe that is crazy. No one thinks like that. So this is how we really think of the world. There's a light bulb, I wear glasses, I drink a Manhattan cocktail, I sit in an armchair, and I have Gus the cat with me. But the thing is that how we see the world and what it really means to us are two very different things. It's not just a light bulb. It's not just a lamp. It's there because I'm scared of the dark. It's not just a cocktail. It's escapism. And it's not Gus the cat. It's a friend who doesn't judge. So yes, we are very, very emotional and we're not nearly as logical as we would like to think of ourselves. Okay, let me ask you a question. I would love to actually ask you a question, but we can't. So, would you cheat or steal? Of course you wouldn't, right? What about if you had just signed an honor code statement? In an experiment, there were two groups, both of whom had to take a test, and both had the same opportunities to cheat if they wanted to. But Group A was given an honor code statement to sign before they did the test. And they did not cheat at all. The other group did cheat. Same thing happened when a group of people was given the 10 commandments from the Bible to read before taking the test. They did not cheat at all. How about if what you were doing was kind of removed from reality? In another test, there are two groups of people, and for every correct answer, they would get a reward. So Group A got a reward of just straight up cash. Group B got tokens that could be exchanged for cash. Turns out that Group B, who got the tokens, cheated a lot more. Because tokens are not really money, right? Yes, they can be exchanged for money, but it's not really money. I would not walk into an insurance company and steal cash, but inflating an insurance claim, maybe. I would not take $5 from my colleague's desk, but I might borrow a pen and forget to give it back. Or how about going into Zara and buying a pair of pants, wearing them once, leaving the tag on, and then returning them? Sounds okay, but then if they're not in great condition, the store actually can't sell them again, so they lose money. So the reason why this matters is because as a society, we're moving away from cash, and a lot of things are happening online. And when we design our digital products, we have to remind people that things that we do online are still real things, and virtual cash is still real cash. So again, we come back to the fact that we're not as rational as we would like to think. When things are removed from reality, when things are abstract, we find it much easier to rationalize actions that we wouldn't do otherwise. I wouldn't steal someone's purse, but I don't know, hacking into someone's Skype account and charging something or PayPal account, it's easier to rationalize. In order to have anything like a complete theory of human rationality, we have to understand what role emotion plays in it. I think it's a wonderful quote, and I could not have said it better. Not even close. A couple of years ago, Deloitte did a study of how to drive brand loyalty. And what they found was when they talked to people that when people describe the types of brands that they're loyal to, or the companies that they would be likely to be loyal to, what they actually were describing was kind of like an old-fashioned friendship. They were describing a relationship that deepens and evolves over time, that is a two-way dialogue, same as a regular friendship would be. And it makes sense for brands to care about developing this kind of a relationship with people because we stand by our friends. When I screw up, my friends don't immediately abandon me and vice versa. We give our friends a second chance. We don't give up on them after the first time when something happens. But the thing with this is that brands have to make this experience cohesive and holistic because you can't be a friend in an email and a jerk over phone. It doesn't work that way. Emotions are very, very powerful. And one of the simplest ways to inject emotion into your brand is through language. Just using language that is warm and has empathy in it and expresses itself the same way as we would talk to our friends or family. So what I'm saying is that making friends pays. So let's all talk like humans and not like robots. With that, I would like to introduce my friend and ex-colleague, Serene, who has written a little song that she would like to play for us. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sorry,
Okay.
it's pretty casual. I don't know if you can see me, but
Yeah.
hi. Yeah, okay. I'd rather talk to robots that no one ever, unless they talk like humans, but it will never sound right, cause you gotta use all the terms I don't get. The robot says feces, but we say poop. We're still quite far from conversational loops. We're lucky to have a head start, and that's when we say, okay, thank you, I'm sorry, I feel you, I really, really do.
I realized something.
That's why I rather talk to humans, emotional creatures, not when they're like robots with binary features. 0, 1, black or white, wrong or right. There's no room for culture or failure or regret. How might we learn from that? The robot says hi, but we say hey. We process our fears when saying yay or nay. It's better this way. There are feelings when we go, okay, thank you, I'm sorry, I feel you, I really do.
Thank you, Serene. Yeah, that is it from us. Yeah. I'm sorry about switching the screen in the middle. I thought it's much better to see Serene than the lyrics on the screen.
Definitely. Wow, our chat is booming with hearts and messages for that performance. Hello, hi, Serene. Wow, that really made my day. Oh, so we have a lot of questions coming your way. So yes, feel free to stay if you like. So our first question was around, Liva, you mentioned the role of UX writers is to translate the abstract to making it more real and human for users. So one question was, how can you share some good practices and approaches on how to maintain the same level of engagement and deliver the right amount of information between English and local languages? So I think it's like two parts to this question.
So I guess the question about localization.
Yeah, so the first part was around how to balance between the level of knowledge and also like delivering the right amount of information.
Okay. I feel it's a difficult question. I'm not sure there is one very straightforward answer to this. If I understand the question correctly, maybe I'll share an example from my understanding and hope it helps. So especially from the point of view of a bank, and I think other financial institutions as well, one thing that is very characteristic is that we tend to be very, very cautious. So we really, really want to cover all possibilities. What it usually means is that in reality, we end up with a lot of tooltips that are just there just in case. But the reality is that they're actually useful to a very small percentage of people, but they're visible to everyone, which means that it just clutters everything up with not a very good reason. So if the question was about what's the right amount of information, I mean, there is no single answer, but depending on the industry you work for, I would say, go for make the product great for majority, instead of cluttering it up for edge cases. And I think that's a general UX thing, I guess. Do you have anything to add, Serene?
And just to follow on that, on the note about localization, because obviously Singapore, which is a English-speaking country, but it was like a DBS product in, let's say, China, how would you ensure that foreign teams also adopt the right approach to language?
Yeah. So also a good question. I'm actually, I think the team that I actually am part of, I'm part of the design standards team. So one thing that we have to do is, we have to look at our design language system and reusability, right? Because as with everything, like, how do we make sure that we don't design over and over, that we don't waste resources? On the other hand, you want to localize, and the same thing goes for language. So there are, we have our own guidelines. For example, we have to localize like jokes and references, which is an obvious one. However, in terms of the voice and tone, we keep it consistent across countries because, let's be honest, our voice and tone is very vanilla. We just want to sound human and friendly. To be honest, there are very few brands in the world who don't want to do that. I don't know, maybe there's a brand who sells like tongue piercings and they want to sound really fierce. But let's be honest, most brands just want to sound friendly and human. So I feel that is something that should be applied across, and that voice should not really change based on the country. In terms of actually implementing all of this, it depends on the structure that you have. So if you have local writers in every country, that is great. What is really important, I feel, is making sure that whoever is translating the content and localizing it, that they have a deep understanding of the product. What sometimes can happen is that, especially if you don't have dedicated writers, and for example, the product owners are the ones who translate to the various languages from your base language, is that they maybe are not comfortable with design tools, so they will request for an Excel. So you give them this Excel that's completely, there's no context, there's no nothing, and maybe they're also not really sure of the actual user experience flow. So that will always end up with horrible results. So if that is the case, it's just very important to make the people who translate, comfortable with the tools. Make sure that you're all looking at the same source of truth in terms of the user journey, that they just understand the flow.
Yeah, I think that probably touches on our next question, which is around the process. Like, how do you choose which content? Do you base that on personas?
Sorry, I didn't catch you. Was it about personas?
Yeah. So how do you decide which content to choose, and completely based on personas' experience and senses? So I think it's around the workflow, like when you have a user persona, does UX writer team get together with other teams to kind of discuss how you will have a language system going forward?
Okay. So, I mean, in large companies, there are a lot of, it depends. I actually used to work for startups before. There it works slightly differently. But let me take DBS as an example, because DBS is actually the more difficult use case because it's so large. So in a large company, there will be a lot of layers. So for example, we have a team that looks at regional branding. So when I came to DBS, we actually already had voice and tone guidelines that was they were established by this team. It was just no one was following them. So then I realized that there's no point for us to create another set of guidelines just for UX, because a voice is something that should be universal and used across every department, because you don't want to have a multiple personality syndrome where your digital products are super fun, your email, your product generated emails are really formal, and then when someone calls the customer experience center, then it's yet another thing. So we kept it very simple. We had one set of guidelines given to us by the regional branding team. We just said, be friendly, be conversational, great. Yeah. Just go with it. And we didn't develop any particular personas or anything. That is just the simple rule that we're trying to follow.
So the business brand, the business and consumer banking.
Come on.
Different. So we also have different segments in DBS. So we have institutional banking, which is more for the business banking users, right? And then we also have consumer banking users, which are regular customers like us. So I think also depending on that, I'm not sure, but the way that we also want to communicate might also, I don't know, be a bit different. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Serene touched on a good point. So we also have institutional corporate banking. So they're actually, when we talk to the teams there, it's a little harder to talk about this idea of, let's sound friendly because this is corporate banking. Why do we need to sound friendly? This is B2B business. But the thing is that it's not at the end of the day, it's not a company interacting with company. It's still a person, an accountant, or a director who logs into that system and has to deal with that system. So there's no reason not to show warmth and empathy. And yes, then if you have if you want to add more complexity to it, then maybe you need to segment. But for us, it's simple, just warmth and empathy across, and there's nothing else.
Yeah. And there was actually a question around so flipping it to a user perspective, how do you think about increasing users' financial literacy when crafting content?
Okay. Great. So we actually have a product Okay, let me start from something else. So a few years ago, I think, as many companies do, we developed our own set of design principles. So one of our 5 design principles is that every single product should have a single powerful idea. What it means is that we don't want to, and you know, in practice this doesn't always happen, but this is what we're going towards, is that a product has to have a single specific purpose, super clear purpose, and it has to serve that group of people. Because if you start adding things on and on and on, then at the end of the day, it will serve no one. So why am I talking about this in this context is because we have a product that is called DigiPortfolio, which is actually meant for junior, like investors who are just learning about investing. So there, I don't think it's not just content or it's not just design. It's both things together. But the type of messages that we provide and write, the voice remains the same. The voice is just warm and empathetic and hopefully human. But the content itself, it's just geared towards people who maybe don't yet have a lot of experience with investing. So why this matters is because when people talk about voice and tone, it often happens that every time when you have a new product, oh, we need a new voice and tone. No, you don't, because voice and tone should be consistent across products and your company. What you need is to figure out the actual content, the actual messaging that you need to deliver. So you can talk with warmth and empathy with junior investors to explain to them how investing works. And then you can still talk with warmth and empathy with like super investors who are really, really savvy.
Sure. And following up on that, like, is there any metrics you use to test if certain tone of voice or language is working to the target audience?
I mean, it's the usual. We have user research, but what we are trying to do is we obviously have UX metrics. So we, whenever we work on something new, like for writers, we make sure that whatever we want to track from our point of view is definitely being tracked. So it's not always easy and also not always necessary to separate content from design, because let's say, I don't know, like an onboarding screen. It could be the design, it could be the content that makes people skip it. So we don't have necessarily content metrics per se, we just have UX metrics. Purely for content, we have to rely on user research, and then on the feedback that we get from the customer call center, and then obviously an A/B testing is another obvious one. But I'll be honest with you, at DBS, A/B testing is not yet something that is widely used, but it's definitely one of the easier ways.
Awesome. So we have about 5 minutes left, and our audience is very curious about the role of AI in language. So one question was, coming back to your point of the litmus test that you have at DBS. So the question was, how can we train AI to pass your human litmus test?
Wow. I have no idea. Let me be honest with you, I really don't know. I mean, it's amazing. I would actually, whoever asked it's like it's a whole massive topic. I don't think that I'm able to answer it now, but whoever asked the question, if they have an opinion, I would actually love to hear. Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And there's another one around so voice AI, like, you know, Amazon Alexa. Like, how do you think these technologies are shaping the way companies look at language, and do you think companies will become more involved in the topic of conversational design. So ensuring that technology will continue to sound human, or do you think it would go the opposite way? Just on your personal.
Yeah, I mean, it has to. It's called conversation design because it is a conversation, and a conversation by its definition is usually human. So we can't expect our users to remember specific phrases or keywords or make them talk in a way that is not natural. It won't work. So yeah, I mean, even with something like voice banking or, I don't know, voice search, the only way, like, I would personally use it is if it understands me and the way I talk. Like, why would I learn a whole new language for a bank or any other product?
Yeah, I think that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you so much, Serene, for joining us, and Liva. It's such an awesome surprise, and I'm sure our audience here has taken away a lot. I'm sure I have. Thank you so much for your time, and if you have any questions for us, just let us know. And it's really a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us today.
Yeah.
All right, bye.